Dude, it's been a long time since we've sat down and had a conversation. Like,
Long time.
yeah, it has, which is I'm kind of sad about because, I feel like every time we talk, it's been great, but then we know all the same people. And it's kind of like I
Right.
talk to my buddies and like, oh yeah, I was just with Mac. Oh yeah, I just had Mac here last week. I'm like, dang it, I'm the only person that doesn't get to hang out with Mac. So I'm glad we get some time
We need to
together.
make that happen. It's never been in person.
I know, that's right. Well, whenever you're in Tulsa, so I'm not on staff at my church anymore. Otherwise, I would totally have you in there. But, anytime you're in Tulsa, man, let's just hang out. I'll buy you some good barbecue around here and
Let's do it. I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah. So tell me what's going on with you these days.
Man, in real life, just trying to be a dad. That's like the main thing. That's like the overarching, as an artist, musician, we're always talking about our music or whatever we're working on. But when you actually ask me like what's going on, all that comes to mind is the trials and tribulations of fatherhood. Uh no, we're in a good season as a family. Um, but yeah, I'm making new music. I am just released first single off of a project I'm working on called Just Like You've Always Done. And you know the feeling when it's been a while since I've released new music. So finally like getting something out into the world was getting a little bit antsy, like sitting on songs for forever and just ready to like pull the trigger on it. So feels good.
Good. Well, and that's I have this conversation with a lot of worship pastors and a lot of people in Nashville that there does feel like this pressure to put new music out all the time. Like you
Yes.
can't keep up with it,
It's
especially as a
it's
worship
crazy.
leader.
Yeah.
And I don't write them. I just sing them. And so I'm always looking for great music, but it's like almost overwhelming. Like everybody has music out almost every once. Do you feel that? So have you been feeling that pressure of, man, I got to get out there. I got to keep my music in front of people?
I should probably feel it more than I do. There is part of me that does have that kind of like timer always going off in your brain of like, I gotta release something. I kind of tried to take that pressure off of me a couple of years ago where I was like, I need to feel good about what I'm releasing and feel like positive about how I'm releasing the songs that I'm working on and the songs that the Lord has given me, and not feel this pressure of like I've got to get it out every 6 months. I have to have a project out or anything like that. So I've tried to release myself a little bit of that, but at the same time, it never really goes away. And as a songwriter and somebody that is constantly writing, like I never take time off. There's never like an off season from like making music. I do want to get out, those songs and get out that music. Just trying to have the best timeline possible, trying to
Yeah.
be like wise with my timeline.
Yeah. Well, and you want to stay in the moment, I think
Right.
that's what great songwriters do is and again, I'm not a songwriter, but I've been around enough of them to know that, they want to write what they're going through or they want to,
Yeah.
but then every writer has valleys as
Yep.
well, where either, man, there's just nothing's coming, or I think sometimes God just puts his hand up and says, hey, just wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's build
Yeah.
that reserve back up. So talking about songwriting, like walk me through your inspiration. Like I mean, do you have like a daily writing time? Is this something that, would you consider yourself a songwriter first and, a stage personality second? When I say stage personality, I
Yeah.
mean worship leader, doing concerts, making
Right.
appearances. What order would you put that in for yourself?
For the majority of my life, I would have put songwriter as first and producer as second, and then worship leader as third. And several years ago, that all flipped. And definitely worship leader, leading worship. That's my number one thing that I feel like the Lord has called me to, anointed me to. That's like where that's my first foot. Um, and then songwriting is like a close second. Uh, and I like how you said, is that like a daily thing? Um, it's not necessarily daily for me, but it is something that I have to just like put on the calendar. That it's not just something that I have to wait for inspiration to hit or wait for me to I don't know, have like an epiphany about something. It's something that I've learned. I have to it has to be a discipline for me. It has to be something that I set aside time. Maybe it's a couple of times a week. Maybe it's just putting it on the calendar. Maybe it's going to Nashville, spending time with friends and actually setting time. But that's the most productive I can be as a songwriter is just making the time for it. And usually after that, like if I set aside time, if I set aside like, all right, this day I'm going to spend 4 hours going to write, we'll see what comes out. Then after that, when I can like live with an idea, live with a song that we've started or something like, that's when the inspiration really starts to come and I can start digging deeper on songs and feeling like, oh, let's really dig into this song and let's make this song the best that it can be and really work hard at what we're trying to say, what the concepts we're trying to get out.
So what are you trying to say these days? Like what has God put on your heart? What are we going to hear as far as themes in this new batch of songs that you've got coming?
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to someone recently about I can't help but write from personal experience. That's always going to come out. Even as a worship leader writing worship songs, it's still going to be rooted in what the Lord is doing in my heart right now. Um, but I think at the same time, I think that so much of us, even though we all have our personal stories, our personal things that we're facing, our personal seasons, so much of that overlaps with each other. Like so much of the broader themes of life, like we're all experiencing. And so even with this first song I released, it's a song about the consistency and the faithfulness of God. And as broad as that seems, that's still something that I have to be reminded of. It's still something that I have to plant my flag of hope and truth in my heart of no matter what's around me, no matter what. Like I said, I'm a dad of 3 kids. Every day is chaotic. My schedule's chaotic. No day looks the same as it did yesterday, but I find peace in the consistency of Jesus. And I find peace in the just the steadiness of no matter what's going on around me. There's just a steadiness in who God is and who I am in Christ. And so that's what that song's about. I have a lot of songs that are similar about the faithfulness, about looking back and seeing what God has done before, believing that he's going to do it again, that he's going to move again, that he's not done yet. Um, and then I have a lot of songs that are just exaltation, you know, like it's not about me. I want to lift high the name of God. And I find, because I write from personal experience a lot, I do have a lot of songs that can kind of be me centric, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think it's bad to focus on like what the Lord is doing in your life and, how he's moving in your heart. But there are a lot of times that I have to say, like, hey, I need to maybe set aside that for a minute and let me just write a psalm that's just about the praise of God that has no eyes, it has no me's. It's just let me just worship. And so
Yeah,
I have songs like that as well.
yeah, we see that in the life of David, don't we? In the songs that we have from him, is that there's a lot of personal experience, the trials that he's going through, and asking God to sustain him. And there's prophetic.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff he did was prophetic about what is about to happen and who God is. And then there was there was the corporate about his people, the people of Israel, and the his kingdom that he was concerned with. And I think all those go together. That's probably what Paul meant by psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, right?
Yeah.
That all of it is it. There should all that should all be a part of what we do. And
David gives us such a good language. Like I'm so grateful for the way that he wrote because it gives such a good blueprint of honesty and transparency in that God isn't afraid of our doubts, our fears, our angers, all the stuff, like all the kind of negative stuff that we tend to carry as humans that overshadow all the positive stuff. Like we can bring that to the Lord. He's not afraid to receive that. And then at the end of the day, David still always points back to God, and to just the glory of God while at the same time being so transparent and honest.
it's good. Who are you hanging out with these days? Like who are you writing with?
Man, it's kind of all over the place. This Just Like You've Always Done is a song that I wrote with Jesse Early and Hank Bentley, two two close friends that I've been writing with for years. Um, Josh Baldwin's a good friend of mine that I've got a song with that I really, really love. Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, yeah, there's so many writers, so many. Mitch Wong. I don't know if you've spent much time
Oh
with
yeah,
him, but he's
love
he's
Mitch.
a close friend. Yeah, who writes incredible songs, and have gotten to write with him a good bit. Jeff Pardo. So many good people. I know I'm forgetting some people, but
Oh, that's a who's who right
yeah,
there. Yeah,
yeah,
I,
so
I
many
can't
good
wait for
ones.
that. Yeah. So you mentioned every day is different for you. I resonate with that because I left my church staff full time back in 2020, and there was an excitement and a terror at the same time
Yes,
of walking away from a salary and benefits and all that stuff to go do what we feel like God wanted us to do as a family. And they're most, I would say 90% of the time, I love it. I love not knowing what tomorrow's going to bring or having a different schedule every day or being at a different church every weekend. Or sometimes just going, you know what? I'm not going to work for 3 days. I'm just gonna do my own thing.
right.
Uh, how has that been for you? Is that something you feel like since you left Elevation so many years ago, that you feel like that's something that you're really enjoying in this season of your life?
Yeah, it's definitely, you described it well. Like it is there. There is a joy and a terror that comes along with being obedient to the Lord in an unknown season and not knowing like what's on the other side. Uh, we I feel like me and my wife experienced so much of the joy of the Lord in the season that we're in, and so much of dependency on Him and seeing His faithfulness and seeing Him show up in new ways that catch us by surprise. That doesn't take away the human nature of like wanting control and me constantly being like, comfort is such a thing for me. Like if
Yeah.
that's something that could easily become an idol in my life is comfort. And and so I'm constantly wanting control so I can have comfort in my life or I can have security in my life. And so doesn't take away the maybe the anxiousness of not having any of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, but we've seen the Lord like just be so present in our lives time and time again, over and over and over again, that we have found more joy in just seeing that than we could have ever imagined. And so that's really the gift and a blessing in our lives that we didn't even know that that was going to be part of the journey when we felt like we were being obedient by like leaving a church staff and kind of stepping out.
Yeah, because it is weird. It's a no matter what church situation you come out of, there's a detox moment, and I don't say that in a negative way,
Right.
but it's I have to make these decisions on my own now. I have to follow the moving of the Holy Spirit on my own. Where before you had this covering of a
Yep.
ministry that was saying, "Hey, we're going this way." God's saying, "We're going this way. We're going to talk about this next week. This is where our church is going to go next year." When you get out from under that covering, now it's like you're like, okay, God, I need to hear from you.
Yeah.
And and I found that there's about a year for me of wanting someone to tell me what to do.
A lot
And
of second
really,
guessing.
yeah, there really is.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're the only one responsible. I mean, being on a church staff, I'd be like, hey, if this doesn't work, it's not all on me. Well, it kind of is
Right.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
it pretty much is now. So I resonate with your journey and where you are. I know that we're in different seasons of life where you've got little kids and I've got grandkids, but
Hmm.
it is a lot of the same of, okay, God, it's almost like, people ask me kind of what my life is like right now. I'm like, I kind of feel like, you know, in a way like Abraham, where God said, go that way. I'll tell you when you get there,
Yeah.
and I'll do
Yeah.
stuff along the way. I'm not going to tell you exactly where that's going to be.
I
So,
know I'm such a planner, and my wife and I were both very goal oriented, goal driven people. And so to kind of constantly like we still have goals and we still have dreams and we still have, tangible things that we're working towards or we've got like on the calendar. But for the most part, so much of our life is like one foot in front of the other,
yeah,
lamp unto my feet, that, I'll tell you, day by day, but your 5 years, 10 years from now is probably not going to look like what you think it's going to look like.
And that's, again, we said it earlier, it's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yes.
But that's faith, isn't it? Faith
Right.
is, all right, Lord, you were there
Yeah.
last time, so I'm going to assume you're going to be here this time.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you a tough question, if that's okay, because this is something that I think God's been asking me to define for quite a while now. Why do we worship? I know it's I think it's going to be a little bit different answer for everyone. I have my own opinion, and I'm not talking about the what or the how. I'm talking about the why. Why do we worship? And those of us that do this for a living, we kind of have an answer to that, even if we haven't like spoken it out. But I have a feeling you do enough speaking and traveling and teaching with your career that you have an answer for why do we worship? Why is worship important?
Yeah. I don't know if I have the answer, but I know the thing that comes to my mind when I, hear a question like that is similar to even prayer. You know, the Lord allows us to be in communion with Him through prayer. It's not like He needs us to pray for Him to do what He's going to do, but He allows us to come and be a part of the process because He knows that prayer changes us and it changes our heart and it changes what He can do in our lives. And I feel like worship is similar in that sense of the Lord, everything that He creates is worshiping Him. Humans are the one thing that like He's given the choice to choose to worship Him or not. And He allows us that choice. Like He allows us to worship Him because it changes us and it allows us to become new creations by exalting Him and acknowledging Him and giving Him our attention. And so I think that's one thing is that worship is a life-changing thing, you know? And it's so cool that He allows us to do that. And I love too that I mean, this might sound like elementary, but that He's given us like music as like a vessel to worship Him is such a great thing because music is such a transcendent form of communication. And
Yeah.
it gives us chill bumps when we hear like a song, or it gives us like flutters in our stomach like if we hear like this like beautiful melody. And so the fact that He's even given us this gift of music to worship Him is such a cool and unique thing. I love it.
Yeah.
But I do think um it's just a gift. I don't want to I don't want it to make it sound like I'm saying like to worship God is like just for us, because that's not what I'm saying. But it is like
No, I'm tracking with
it's
you.
a thing that
Yeah.
that the Lord like allows us to come and be a part of. And I think it's just, yeah,
I agree with that
like if
100%.
we if we don't sing, the rocks cry out, the
Yeah.
mountains tremble, like all that stuff. And so it's just cool that He gives us that gift.
Yeah. You use the word transcendent, like it's a, it's a different, it goes into a different level when we sing as opposed to when we just speak words or we just
Right.
show up. And I hate using the word magical, but it's kind of the one word I can think of that describes what music does to us as humans. Like it's
Yeah,
a
it's
magical thing.
mysterious. We don't
It's
really
mysterious. Yeah, it's a good word. It's
understand it. Yeah.
mysterious. And I've been dwelling on the passage, I believe it's in Psalm 100, where coming to his, you know, into his courts with thanksgiving, into his gates with thanksgiving, into his courts with praise. Come before him with joyful songs. And I'm like, God, has had a commandment? Like, are we
Hmm.
supposed to come before you singing? And if so, worship may be one of the most important parts of our relationship with you, because is it a command or is it a very strong uh, uh,
Like suggestion.
suggestion? Yeah, is it a strong suggestion? I highly suggest that you
Right.
come before me singing joyful songs, and it just it makes me love and cherish the gift that God has given me and other worship pastors and other worship leaders, knowing that this is what God's like. He delights in it. It's something He wants. It's something that gives Him joy. You said it earlier. It's not just for us. It's not just for us to feel great, but it's for Him as well. And And that's why I love sitting down with guys like you that God has given this little extra gift of songwriting so that you can deliver songs to people like me
Yeah.
in my church so we can sing them and take those songs into his presence.
It kind of reminds me of like just the simplicity of like what the gospel is in general is that Jesus is enough. And so at the end of the day, if every single thing in my life was taken away, I can find hope and peace in the fact that I am saved by the grace of God. That is enough. But because of his generosity, because of his kindness in my life, I can look at all these things as like, man, that's icing on the cake. That's such a gift that he's allowing good things in my life, that he's allowing me to be a dad, that he's allowing me, to get to be a worship leader, to do all these unique and powerful things in my life. That's such a gift. That's just an added bonus. In a lot of ways, like that's what worship is. Like at the end of the day, like just to worship God for no benefit of my own, for me not to receive anything, that would be enough for me to just sing holy, holy, holy forever and to proclaim that. But there's also just like a gift in the fact that he also deposits something into us when we worship. Like that's just an added bonus. That's such a sweet representation of how kind Jesus is to us.
I love that. What would you say to a worship leader or a worship pastor that's on the edge of burnout, or maybe they think I'm
Ooh,
getting too old for this, or man, is this really making a difference? I don't, or they start to not value their gift. I see that a lot
yeah.
in worship leaders and worship pastors that they start to devalue this gift of music that God has given them. What would you say to someone that, is probably trying to decide, should I keep doing this or should I give up and go do something else with my life?
Yeah. Being close to burnout is something that I have experienced. I would say that being close to burnout and then getting on the other side of actually being burned out, it's way harder to come back after you've kind of crossed that line. So if you sense yourself kind of getting there, take a stock and inventory of like so many things in your life and try to shift some stuff around to save that, because I do think it's like so hard to come back after you've kind of crossed a certain point. A big thing for me when I was experiencing that is I like, see, even from a tangible perspective, I like looked at my job. I looked at what I was doing, what was on my table, what was under my responsibility, and tried to figure out what are some things that I can start handing off to other leaders on my team. What are things that I am uniquely gifted at that I need to be giving more attention to? And I really like worked hard of saying like I can't keep running at the pace that I'm running at. I need to make some shifts in my life because I don't want to burn out and just quit and just be done. Because I think as musicians or as creatives or as just even church staff, we've all experienced that feeling. So take stock, take inventory, figure out like what are other things that you can start handing off or that you can kind of release from your plate, raise up other leaders on your team, other leaders in your church to take over. Um, and then the other thing, like just from a spiritual side, is try to find those whys in your life of why you do this, why you started doing this. Try to find the stories, even in your church, your local church. Like, be very in tune with what's going on in the people of your community and to understand, like, man, what I do, because I so believe this as a worship leader, like, what we do is so important. I know we live in it. Guys like me and you, we're in it every day. We're thinking about worship songs every single day.
Yeah.
So when it
Hmm.
comes to Sunday, we're kind of like, okay, I got to sing these, I got to do these 3 services and sing these 4 songs. And I've been singing them all week and they're not that, we can get in this like weird mentality of like this
Uh-huh.
lethargic.
Yeah.
But for all the people that are coming to church, that are coming to your church, that might be the only time all week long that they're thinking about praising Jesus. For right or wrong, like that might just be the one time of the week where their undivided attention is on God. And for us to steward that time is such an important calling. That's such a gift for the Lord to allow us to lead those moments. And so just know what you do is so important. Know what you do is so valuable, but also like get in the depths of like the people at your church and understand like, so when you're leading, you're not looking into a room of just blank faces, but you're looking into a room of John and Sarah and you know whoever,
Yeah.
Craig and whatever, whoever it might be in your church, that you know what's going on in your life, and you know when you're singing for all my life you have been faithful, like when you're singing those words, you know why that chorus means something to those people. Does that make sense? You know,
Absolutely.
like it puts like a story to the song. It gives more meaning to what you're saying. And so, yeah, I would encourage you with that. Like dig deep into your community.
Hey, man, I just feel like you stole my journal and are reading all my notes right now because I've you've said almost everything that I, that I believe in as far as why we gather, and the people that are coming in. I say this to our teams all the time. It's going to be somebody's first time, last time, or only time to church,
Yep.
and you don't get to, with this position that you've chosen, and it's part of the burden that we carry, and it can lead to burnout. But the reality is, you don't get a choice
Yeah.
to whether to put your heart into it or not. There are literally souls on the line that God has brought into your presence this weekend, and they need
Yes.
what you have to share with them. I'll say too, you started singing "Goodness of God." I think a song like that also makes a case for older worship leaders to stay in the hunt, man. Stay in the game, stay in the saddle.
Yeah.
It's great to train up young leaders. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a discipler. Raise up another generation, raise up 2, 3 generations. I'm on my 3rd generation now of worship leaders that I'm working with, and that's the most rewarding part of my life. But when I get up and sing, "All my life you have been faithful," as opposed to someone who's
You have
18.
stories to back it up.
Right. As opposed to someone who's 18 who gets up and sings, "All my life you have been faithful." Well, yeah, I'm sure he has.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you've been through quite a bit. I don't want to put anybody down that's been through a lot in their teenage years or through their young life. But yeah, when you get in your 50s and 60s, your song should be deeper and sweeter and
Yeah.
mean more because you've seen more. Your experience informs you of who God is and how faithful He is. And so, man, Mac, my
That's
prayer for
such a
you
good
is that,
point.
yeah, my prayer for you is that you keep going, keep writing, you know, even through those peaks and valleys that we're all going to go through our careers. Man, you've got a song to sing, and there's an anointing on you to continue to provide guys like me and my church with songs that we can go into the courts of the King singing and
Yeah.
rejoicing with.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy.